Warning, the following program contains material that may be disturbing. Viewer discretion is advised.
Hello, America. I want to talk to you tonight about something that I find extremely disturbing. This is the second part of the series we did 2 weeks ago on brainwashing. That was what BLM is doing in our schools and the Marxists are doing to tear our country and the Western way of life apart and destroy our families. Tonight's episode, you'll notice it said viewer discretion is advised, not parental discretion. I have actually seen a videotape of a child having their organs harvested while that child was alive. An image I will never get out of my head. This is the only thing that comes close to that. I'm not going to show you the images, but this is laden with evil. And it is in 27 states, and it might be in your kid's school. I want to give you a preface. Over the last couple of months, I have been revealing to you the plan to destroy the Western way of life. Western culture is being dismantled brick by brick. We know that. It seems disconnected, but it's not. These are the principles that really built us. History, our heritage, our faith and our morals, our family. Those things were paramount, but also the free market, being able to do it yourself. But yeah, I did build that. The individual, the rugged individualist that said, I've got a better way to do it. They might fail, they might succeed, but it was up to the individual with merit, and they kept their own property. All of these things are being dismantled. In fact, the merit thing, we were a country that didn't have kings or courts and princes and princesses and titles. We finally came to our senses and said color doesn't matter either. It's the merit, it's the individual and the content of their character that matters. These are all uniquely American. Then we have the Constitution and the rule of law. But those things, again, were based on our faith, our God, our morals, and we taught them in our family. So if you want to destroy America, you got to destroy all of this. BLM, it's in our school. Marxism being taught in our school that the free market is evil and has to be stopped. You're being told if you're white, give up your stuff. You stole it. You didn't build this. There is no individual, especially when it comes to merit. You're guilty. If you are white, you're guilty. And you can't escape that. You're born guilty. You're born a racist. Have you seen the new book that's on the shelves now? That's teaching if you have a baby and they're white, you should be teaching them immediately that they are guilty of racism, that is who they are, a racist. The rule of law, do you think that is even, look at our streets. You think there's a rule of law? Do you think the bad guys do you think it doesn't pay to commit a crime anymore? How's the health of our family? How's the health of our church? What are our morals anymore? You can collapse all of this. You just need a few players, and I'm going to point them out to you. It's the same people. You just have to have a few things in place and destroy it piece by piece. But all of it is under attack. But tonight, I'm going to show you how they slit our throats, and you just don't even see it coming. I ask that you don't dismiss this. I ask that you begin to band together with like-minded individuals. It was one thing when I cried on TV and said, I just fear for my country. There are no tears in my eyes because I am fierce. I fear for the loss of my children. All of us are on the verge of losing our children. And you will see tonight, there is no difference than what Stalin did in Russia or what the Nazis did with the Hitler Youth. This is the taking of your children, and it's going to happen so fast. What if I told you that somebody came to your child and said, oh, you're at home at COVID? You know what you should do? Watch some porn. What would you say? What if I told you that it wasn't just one of your son or daughter's buddies, it was their teacher? You may be a young person experiencing the thoughts of healthy sex, or you're the partner or parent or caregiver of something that is feeling this way. How do you support yourself or the loved ones with COVID-19? Because it's making all sorts of relationships challenging. Ready? This is from what I'm going to show you tonight. 1, sexting. Do you know that women are 4 times more likely to say they sent a text to feel empowered, twice as likely to say they did it to feel confident? Read more on why people sext and some ideas on how. Solo sex. While social distancing, you can practice solo sex, aka masturbating, to get know your own body. Unsure how? Questions? You're not alone. Here's a link to show you how. 3, porn. Despite mixed messages out there about porn, it is often a very healthy part of people's sexuality. Find out why young people can watch porn and what they can learn from it. Interested in watching porn? Click here. This is from the school curriculum. Date yourself, how you can just date yourself, because you need to have a relationship with yourself. Or I love this one. The 5th suggestion in COVID, go online. Social media is full of sex experts who are sharing resources on mental health, how to use sex toys, tips for dirty talk, communication, consent, how race, class, gender, and power show up in sexuality. Check out some of these amazing educators. You'd call the police if I handed this to your child. But we say nothing when it's in our school. We are headed for the Great Reset. All you need is a crisis, and you can dismantle everything and then reset it. You will understand if you stitch all of the shows together that we have done over the last month or two, from Event 201 all the way to tonight. It is all connected. And I'm going to reveal one more cog in the wheel tonight. The neo-Marxists, later called cultural Marxists, they came here to America in 1938, and their goal was to erode America from the inside out. Journalist Ralph de Tolando described their strategy like this, quote, the program called for the destruction of religion, the family, education, and all moral values, along with the capture of the intellectuals and the instruments of mass communication, such as the press, radio, and films. To this, it is appended a new Freudism, which reduced human relationships to rampant sexuality and the grossest pleasure principles. A program its secret founder boasted will make America stink. America, we are rotting to the core. The plan to reduce human relationships to sexuality is happening. Have you noticed how far we've come from friends? And now they're targeting our children. A warning for those watching tonight, a lot of what I'm about to reveal to you is extremely explicit. So much so that literally, if any of this curriculum that is being pushed into our schools for our kids, as low as kindergarten, it's being debated now in Texas. If it was shown to them outside of school, if I went to them and showed them this in the playground, I kid you not, I'd go to jail. You leave it up to your judgment, but children should not be in the room for this show. I have teenagers, and I wouldn't want them seeing this. They know about all of it, but we have got to save our kids in the hopes that they will save us. I want to show you some images taken from a book that is part of comprehensive sexuality education curriculum, currently floating around in our schools. I said Texas is voting on it, but already in Austin, it's part of the curriculum. How would your child process this? I mean, believe it or not, it gets much, much worse than this. They're not teaching abstinence. They're not doing that. They're teaching kids as early as kindergarten masturbation, anal sex, transgenderism, and abortion. They're telling kids in elementary school, forget what your parents taught you. You can choose when to have sex with someone whenever you want. You don't have to wait to be married. Children are sexual. Let go of all those antiquated beliefs that you learned at home, probably from your white racist parents. Now, you might ask yourself, who the hell agreed to any of this? The answer, not you, not me. The very top of the global political, financial, and technocratic elites. First, the United Nations. It is the same group of people over and over again. You have the UN involved. You also have the WHO. You know how great they are. In fact, the German Federal Ministry of Health. Germans always seem to be involved. They got together with the WHO and the UN back in 2008 in an attempt to rewrite sexual education in the schools. So they published it. Here it is. They published this, I think, in 2008. And if you go to page 40, it directs teachers to teach masturbation and, quote, the enjoyment of touching one's own body. Now, maybe you want to do that with your teenager, maybe. This was for 4-year-olds. 4. Then they took this in one of the most racist moves I can imagine, and they said, okay, the Germans kind of put it together. You know who we should try it on? The Africans. So they exported it to Africa by the United Nations Educational, Science, and Cultural Organization, UNESCO. Aren't they the people that are supposed to be protecting our World Heritage sites? Oh, I feel so much safer now. If you thought this German document was insane, wait until you see this one. On page 79, sexuality in infants and toddlers. Children are sexual even before births. Infants touch and rub their genitals because it provides pleasure. Children can experience orgasm from masturbation. So forget about the 4-year-old from birth. It describes when children might have choices to have sex and when they might have. Marie and William have had sex once before. Tonight, William tells Marie that he has wanted her all day. Marie would rather just go hang out and talk, but she thinks since they did it once, there's no going back. William starts to take off his clothes. Maria says nothing to him. They have sex again. Or I like this on page 89. Youth need accurate health information about all forms of sexual intercourse, vaginal, oral, and anal. So, the Germans, who have never had a problem with racism, they take this and they ship it to Africa. And Africa takes it, and the UN, after they finish poking and prodding Africans, they finalized their work and they published this. This is the International Technical Guidance on Sexuality Education. At the top, it's UNESCO. Little logo that's for Sustainable Development Goals. In other words, UN Agenda 2030. Used to be called Agenda 21. This is what is now being voted on all over America. How is this garbage actually getting approved? How is it getting pushed? Who's pushing it? State education boards here in the U.S. Which ones are debating it? Well, I will tell you, they have a very powerful ally. Another group that I'm sure you're not going to be surprised. Planned Parenthood is cited in this document 14 times. They are hyper-sexualizing children, destroying Western values, and creating a whole lot of future customers to boot. I want to introduce you to a man I have tremendous respect for. We were talking about this just about a week before my last special. He brought this to my attention. He is a guy who has been on this since he lived in South Africa because he actually had his sister taken and she was in the sex slavery as she was kidnapped years ago, and has dedicated his life to fight this and the forces of darkness. His name is Jaco Boons. He is the founder of Share Together, nonprofit dedicated to fighting global sex trafficking. Welcome, Jaco. How are you?
Man, it's good to be here. Thank you.
So, I don't even know where to start, but since you're from Africa, let's start there. Pretty racist to experiment on Africa. Why did it go to Africa first? Do you know?
Historically, this is what these players that you so eloquently highlight do. Whether it's big pharma or sex, they'll come to Africa because it's very difficult for an African tribal community to revolt. It's very difficult for them to stand up for themselves, and it is crammed down their throats, much as what we saw happened with the AZT drug back in the early days. But this was very well known by Africans, that parents were not happy with what their children were being taught, because it obviously encouraged childhood pregnancy, because they're experimenting with sexuality. Through the AIDS epidemic, I have to remind you, so increasing a knowledge base for youth to have sex while AIDS was rampant in Africa. It was a testing ground to see whether people will actually fight, and there was no fight.
So Jaco, I am not a prude. I mean, I'm just not. I'm not shocked by, sex, and I'm just not a prude that way. However, when it comes to porn, and this is common thought now, that porn is fine. What study says porn is fine? We all know that porn destroys young men. It destroys relationships. It is the most destructive force in relationships now, above all else. Women should be outraged that porn is being suggested by these people, right? And yet nobody seems to mind.
Where are the feminist groups? Where are these feminist groups for women's rights when women are being degraded and portrayed in a derogatory fashion, to the point where, on average now, the average age of introduction to porn in America is age 8 for young boys. 8. We have 8, 10-year-olds that are addicted to porn, 30 minutes plus per day. This is a real crisis. The most powerful weapon on earth, Glenn, is sex. Sexual immorality is a destructive force. And if you can start in kindergarten, you will control a nation. There's no question.
And it is, what's frightening about it is having kids turn against the teachings of the home, teachings of faith, things that have been the rock and foundation. And it's taking apart our families systematically and just destroying the morals of our country. This isn't not like, I mean, I'm sure there are going to be people who be like, people say that all the time. Elvis, he was swivelly with his hips. This is not that. No. Their stated goal is to destroy families.
This is very systematic. It's a planned attack. Look, Hitler wasn't supposed to lose that war. And Hitler said, we're going to infiltrate Hollywood, as you so well quoted, but we're going to attack the youth. We have celebrated a man in this country. We've given him the Nobel Peace Prize. Dr. Kinsey did 24-hour around-the-clock sexual experimentation with 4-year-olds, seeing how many orgasms he can have a 4-year-old perform on another 4-year-old. And this man won the Nobel Peace Prize. Everything you see today that you highlighted came from his teachings and his writings. We made films about this guy, celebrating him as the great American scientist. He was one of the most important people in the world for a 10-year period from 1948 to 1958. This is the man that wrote all of this. His ties with Germany, very deep. They took the doctrine, they said, we'll refine it, we'll test it in Africa, take it to Europe, and then we'll cram it down America's throat because they're not watching.
Back with more in just a minute.